So I've played around with the primary wing a little bit more, but there was another part of the expression which I just wanted to show you, and that is, at the moment the length, it's all quite uniform as it goes down the wing, but rather than just having the p divided by 50, what we could do is add in a random factor. So if we type in rand, let's just get rid of that. As you can see, again, it comes up and it helpfully tells you what you have to put in. So we need a bracket, a minimum value, a maximum value, and then another bracket. So let's set our minimum value at maybe 40 and our maximum at 50. Let's click accept. As you can see, we've just added a bit more variety into the length of the wing. Now that may be a bit too much, might not be enough, but you can play around with that a lot more until you get the look that you're after. So let's move on now and let's look at adding in the second layer of our wing. So again, let's just select the geometry first, and this time we're going to move up a layer, and instead of going up through the menus, we can click here and click Create New XGen Description. So this time we want to add it to the wing left, and this time we're going to call it secondary upper because it's above the primary, and left because it's on the left wing. And again, we want custom geometry, but this time we no, actually for now we're going to keep it in uniform rows because again we want it to just come straight out of the back following the surface normals of this geometry. And again, we'll use attributes. So let's create that. And again, it's telling us that there aren't any archives in the archive list. So let's go in and add in a few more feathers. So if we go back to what we had before, where is it? Is it going to be in here? Where are you? Nope, it's not in our final previous list. So let's look. Here we go. Digital Tutors, feathers. Nope. There we go. Digital Tutors archives. So we've used our primary feathers. So now let's go down to secondary A and B. So these will be the upper, and then C and D, and those will be the lower ones. And like I say, it doesn't seem to work properly if we used both the primary ones on the upper there. So let's just load in the primary ones and see what happens. Now this time we don't want to bring in the materials because the materials already exist in the scene that we're going to use. So I'm going to click no. And those primary feathers seem to have come in and they look okay. So let's just adjust the colour just so that we can see them. Maybe this time we'll make them blue. Like so. Now it may be that you bring in, actually I'm going to get rid of those. And I am going to add in the secondary ones because they're a slightly different shape, different texture as well. So I'm just going to load in the secondary ones. No, because we don't want to bring in the shaders this time because they use the same shaders as the primary wings. So there we have those in place. Let's scroll up here. Let's adjust our spacing again to 20. As you can see there, we've got a nice row of feathers. So this time let's rotate them around N, just so they're pointing out of the back. And then it's just the same procedure as what we did with this primary covering of feathers. We can go in and I'd start adjusting these and adding in our helpful little expression. What we can do is we can jump down to our primary left and just copy and paste this just to get us started. Secondary upper, so the length, let's see how that looks. Again, that's quite long. We want these feathers to be shorter on the top, which is fine. The moment they're pointing up slightly, so we could use the tilt value just to drop them down a touch. Change our spacing to 10 just to thicken up that layer. Maybe make them a little bit longer. And we could just go in and use the same, pretty much the same setup as with this feather, with the primary layer here. So we could do the same with the width. Maybe keep that random factor in there, click accept. Like so, maybe these feathers are a little bit thicker. Let's increase the spacing just to add a few more feathers in there. Maybe do it the right way. Keep getting confused with that. And then we could just tweak the length a little bit more. As you can see, it's very easy just to go in and play around. We could tilt this again. Again, we could add that same part of the expression into there. Just to add a little bit more variety. So let's say that's the upper wing. Done. We could go down and we could do the same thing underneath here. This time create another expression, another description, sorry. Or we could try and duplicate. Let's see what... We don't want it to be bound to the same place, so we don't want to include the patch bindings. We do want it to be under the left wing, and we want to copy secondary upper left to secondary lower left. And we're creating separate ones because the upper one tilted up slightly, whereas the lower one wants to tilt down slightly. If we use the same one, they'd both be tilting up, and we'd end up with intersecting feathers. It's better to have them separate, and then we've got more control over them. So let's duplicate that. So we have our lower left. So let's select some geometry to apply it to. Replace with selected faces, and that's applied that to the bottom. And if we wanted to, we could go down, we could get rid of these feathers, secondary A and B, and we could add, for a bit more variety, add in secondary C and D. Click no because we don't want to bring in any extra shaders. We're going to look at shaders a little bit later on. As you can see, they're exactly the same there. But what we can do is change the generator seed so it comes up with something different. So if we set that to 2, you can see that lower branch of feathers is now slightly different because it's using a different generator. If we set that to 1, it will be exactly the same as these upper feathers here. But we want it to be a bit different, a bit more variety, so we can set that to 2. So now we've got our upper and lower feathers in there. So let's adjust this to tilt up, just to bring that a bit further up. If we zoom out now, we can see we're starting to build up our wing quite nicely. And again, it's just at this stage, we're just playing around with these values. You've got your primary, secondary, lower and secondary upper. So it's up to you now just to tweak those a little bit more. And don't worry if this keeps coming up with this error down here. All this is because it's trying to look for a little graphic thumbnail to go in here, which you need to generate. So don't worry about that error for now. It doesn't cause any issues whatsoever. It's just purely to put a little graphic in here. So continue to play around with those 3 descriptions, and then what we will do in the next video, we will look at the final description for this left wing, and that will be just to cover the whole upper area here.